Okay, let's dive into something that's just deeply, deeply concerning. We're talking about contaminated cough syrups that have led to a series of unimaginable tragedies, affecting the most vulnerable among us, our children.
And that phrase right there, from a BBC report, it just says it all, doesn't it? It's happening again. It highlights this tragic, infuriating repetition of a crisis that is absolutely preventable. For any parent, for any doctor, it's a chilling reminder of a problem that just won't seem to go away.
And the scale of this, it's staggering. In just the last couple of years, the World Health Organization has connected over 300 deaths, mostly of young children, to these contaminated medicines. And remember, every single one of those numbers represents a family, a community, just completely shattered.
So, to really get a handle on what's going on, we need to first look at the most recent incident. And then we'll see how it fits into this heartbreaking international pattern of poisonings.
So, the latest alarm bell went off in Madhya Pradesh, India. We're talking about at least 19 kids, all of them under 6 years old, who suffered kidney failure after taking what should have been a harmless cough syrup. When they finally tested it, the results were just shocking. The syrup contained almost 50% diethylene glycol, a lethal dose in a child's medicine.
And you know, this timeline makes it painfully clear this is not some isolated event. Not at all. We're looking at a pattern of repeated systemic failures. From Jammu back in 2020 to the Gambia to Uzbekistan just last year, these syrups have been linked to child deaths all over the globe, which is why the WHO finally issued that urgent global alert.
So what is this stuff that keeps showing up in children's medicine? To really grasp the danger here, we need to break down the science behind this poison.
Right, diethylene glycol, or DEG. This stuff has absolutely no business being in medicine, period. It's a cheap industrial chemical. It's literally a component of antifreeze. But sometimes, shady manufacturers will swap it in for safe, more expensive ingredients like glycerin to cut costs. And when a child ingests it, it's a potent, deadly poison.
And this is exactly how it wages war on a small body. Once a child drinks that syrup, their body turns the DEG into an even more powerful toxin. This toxin then just launches an all-out assault on the body's cells, especially in the kidneys, shutting them down completely and leading to catastrophic organ failure.
The chances of survival are just tragically, horribly low. This chart really puts it into perspective. In that outbreak in the Gambia, for the children who developed severe kidney damage from the syrup, the mortality rate was over 80%, and almost certain death sentence from a simple bottle of cough medicine. So, the big question is, how on earth does this poison end up in a medicine bottle to begin with? Well, it's not an accident. It's the result of a complex, system-wide breakdown in quality, in regulation, and frankly, in ethics.
Yeah, it's a problem with a lot of layers. It all starts with fraudulent manufacturers trying to save a buck, and it's made possible by weak regulations and even corruption that lets them get away with it. Then you've got this incredibly complex global supply chain that can ship these deadly products right across borders before anyone knows what's happened.
And if you want a terrifying case study of how this all plays out, look at the tragedy in Panama. A fraudulent substitution was made in China, it passed through a supplier in Europe, and ended up in medicine in Panama, where it killed hundreds of people. It just goes to show you how one break in that chain can have devastating global consequences.
But this raises another question, right? Why are these syrups so common in the first place, creating such a massive market for these potentially dangerous products? Well, this brings us to a really deeply ingrained culture of overprescription and this expectation for a quick fix.
And we are talking about a massive market. In India alone, it's worth over $250 million right now, and it's projected to nearly triple in the next 10 years. And all of that is fueled by this widespread and often totally misplaced belief that these syrups actually work. So right here, you can see the huge disconnect between what commonly happens and what the medical evidence actually supports. In clinics, you've got pressure from parents, you have doctors just prescribing these cocktail syrups for a quick fix, but the reality is most childhood coughs are viral, they go away on their own, and these syrups offer very little real benefit.
This quote from the doctor involved in the latest tragedy is, wow, it's incredibly revealing. It shows just how deeply ingrained these prescribing habits are. You know, it's not necessarily malicious, it's just routine practice. But it's a routine that has opened the door to absolute disaster when the medicine itself is poison.
Okay, so how do we stop this from happening again? The World Health Organization has heard all these alarms, and they've laid out a pretty clear path forward for absolutely everyone involved in the chain of medicine.
The WHO's recommendations demand action from every single link in the chain.
Governments have to actually enforce the laws. Manufacturers have to test their ingredients. No excuses. And critically, doctors and physicians need to pump the brakes on these prescriptions and really educate parents about the risks versus the very limited benefits.
And the key takeaway from all of this is that this is entirely preventable. This doesn't have to happen. But stopping it requires a huge cultural shift. Ethical manufacturing, responsible prescribing from our doctors, and informed parenting that understands that a cough doesn't always need a syrup.
And that leaves us all with this final, crucial question. This isn't about pointing a finger at one bad actor or one failed policy. It's about a cycle of behavior and a system riddled with weaknesses. Breaking that cycle to protect our children, well, that's going to require everyone, from the factory floor to the doctor's clinic to the family home, to step up and act.